Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching the stars drift past through the main view screen. The ship was returning from a routine survey mission in the Outer Rim, carrying precious mineral samples back to Earth. Jake had been commanding vessels for 15 years, ever since humanity joined the Galactic Council. He remembered how excited everyone had been when the aliens first made contact. Now, 50 years later, that excitement had faded into routine. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Brooks walked up to Jake with a worried expression on her face. She held a data pad in her hands, and Jake could see the urgent message indicator blinking red. "Captain, we just received a priority transmission from Earth Command," Lisa said. "You need to see this immediately." Jake took the data pad and read the message. His face grew pale as he absorbed the contents. The message was from Admiral Kate Sullivan, the highest-ranking officer in Human Space Command. It was marked with the highest security classification. "Get everyone to the briefing room," Jake told Lisa. "All senior officers, right now." Within minutes, the Liberty's command staff had gathered in the small briefing room. Communications Officer Danny Walsh was there, along with Chief Engineer Tom Bradley and Security Chief Mike Johnson. They all looked concerned as Jake activated the main display screen. "What you're about to see will shock you," Jake began. 3 hours ago, the hegemony delivered an ultimatum to the Galactic Council. The screen showed the official seal of the hegemony, a militant alliance of 12 powerful alien species. Jake had studied them during his academy training. They were led by the Vorthak Empire, a species of large reptilian beings who controlled nearly a quarter of the galaxy. The other 11 species in the alliance were equally powerful and equally aggressive. "The hegemony demands that humanity be immediately expelled from the Galactic Council," Jake continued. "They want all human colonies evacuated and our entire species confined to Earth's solar system. Forever." Danny Walsh leaned forward in his chair. "That's impossible. We have 400 colonies and almost 3 billion people living outside the solar system. Where would they all go?" "The hegemony doesn't care," Jake replied. "They claim that humans are too primitive and dangerous to exist alongside civilized species. They say we're a threat to galactic peace." Tom Bradley laughed bitterly. "A threat? We've never attacked anyone. We followed every council regulation and law for 50 years. How are we a threat?" Jake pressed a button and the display changed to show the Galactic Council chambers. The massive hall could hold representatives from over 300 species. At the center sat Council President Zethron, an ancient being made of living crystal who had led the council for over 2 centuries. The council's response was even worse, Jake said quietly. They agreed to the hegemony's demands. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the screen in disbelief. President Zethron announced that humanity has 7 standard days to evacuate all colonies and return to Earth. Jake continued. "Any human found outside the solar system after that deadline will be considered a criminal and dealt with accordingly." Lisa Brooks stood up, her hands shaking with anger. "They're abandoning us. 50 years of loyal membership, and they're throwing us away to avoid a fight." "It gets worse," Jake said. He activated another recording, this one from a hegemony military briefing. The translation software had worked overtime to decode the alien languages, but the message was clear. Warlord Krexthar, the supreme military commander of the Vorthak Empire, was speaking to his officers. The massive reptilian being was over 8 feet tall, with scales that looked like armor and eyes like burning coals. "The Council's decision proves what we have always known," Krexthar was saying. "Humans are weak. Their allies abandon them at the first sign of trouble. Once they are confined to their home system, we will deal with them permanently. No species that evolved on such a violent world can be allowed to spread across the galaxy." Mike Johnson slammed his fist on the table. "They're planning to exterminate us." "This isn't about exile. They want us dead," Jake nodded grimly. "Intelligence reports suggest that's exactly their plan. The hegemony has been building up forces near human space for months. They were planning this all along." Danny Walsh looked confused. "But why? What did we ever do to them?" Jake switched the display to show a star map of human space. Red dots marked every human colony, while blue areas showed hegemony territory. The 2 regions didn't even touch in most places. "According to our xenobiologists, it's because we're different," Jake explained. "Every other species in the galaxy evolved on worlds that were relatively peaceful. They developed cooperation and negotiation as their primary survival traits. But Earth was different. Tom Bradley nodded slowly. The death world theory. I remember reading about it in school. Dr. Alex Turner has been studying this for years. Jake continued. Earth went through ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and massive extinction events. The species that survived had to be tough, adaptable, and aggressive. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Lisa Brooks was reading through the intelligence files on her datapad. It says here that no other known species has these traits. Most aliens are either herbivores or scavengers. Even their predators are ambush hunters, not persistence hunters. That's what scares them, Jake said. Humans don't give up. We don't surrender. We adapt to any environment and we never stop fighting. To species that evolved in peaceful environments, we must seem like monsters. The room fell quiet as everyone absorbed this information. Finally, Danny Walsh spoke up. So what do we do? Follow orders and evacuate? Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he activated his communication system. This is Captain Morrison to all hands, he announced over the ship's intercom. We have received new orders from Earth Command. All human vessels are to return immediately to human space. Do not acknowledge any communications from alien vessels. We are going home. After he finished the announcement, Jake turned to his officers. But we're not going home to evacuate, he said quietly. Admiral Sullivan is calling an emergency meeting of all fleet commanders. Something tells me we're not going to go quietly into exile. Lisa Brooks looked at the star map again. 400 colonies. Almost 3 billion people. The largest evacuation in galactic history. If we evacuate, Mike Johnson said, the hegemony is expecting us to run. They think humans are cowards because our government has always chosen diplomacy over conflict. Tom Bradley was studying technical reports on his datapad. I've been looking at the hegemony fleet specifications. Their ships are bigger than ours, more heavily armed, and they have a lot more of them. If this turns into a shooting war, we're outnumbered at least 50-1. Jake smiled grimly. Numbers aren't everything, Tom. The hegemony has been fighting according to galactic conventions for centuries. Formal battles between fleets with rules and protocols. But humans didn't evolve to fight fair. What do you mean? Danny asked. I mean that every other species in the galaxy fights like it's a sport, Jake replied. There are rules, there are limits, there are things you don't do. But humans evolved on a world where the only rule was survive. We'll do whatever it takes to win. The Liberty's engines hummed as the ship changed course toward human space. Behind them, the stars continued their eternal dance. Unaware that the galaxy was about to learn what happened when you cornered the most dangerous predators in the universe. Jake looked out at those stars and wondered what the next few weeks would bring. One thing was certain. The galaxy had made a terrible mistake. They had assumed that humans were weak because they chose peace. Soon they would learn the difference between choosing peace and being incapable of war. The hunt was about to begin. Admiral Kate Sullivan walked into the emergency briefing room on Luna Station with quick, determined steps. The massive space station orbited Earth's moon and served as the headquarters for Human Space Command. Kate had been in charge of humanity's military forces for 8 years, and she had never faced a crisis like this one. The briefing room was filled with holographic projections of fleet commanders from across human space. Some appeared as solid blue images, while others flickered due to long-distance communication delays. Every major human military leader was present, either in person or by hologram. General Ryan Clark sat at the main table, his weathered face showing the strain of the past few hours. He commanded the Colonial Defense Forces, the ground troops responsible for protecting human settlements. Next to him sat Fleet Admiral Ben Parker, who controlled the home fleet that defended Earth itself. Ladies and gentlemen, Kate began, you all know why we're here. The Galactic Council has ordered us to abandon everything we've built over the past 50 years and retreat to Earth. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Fleet Admiral Parker leaned forward. Admiral, with all due respect, we have to consider the practical realities. The Hegemony Alliance controls 12 species with a combined fleet of over 30,000 warships. We have 600 ships total. The math is simple. The math assumes we fight by their rules, Kate replied. Director Amy Foster, please share what your intelligence teams have discovered. Amy Foster appeared as a hologram from Earth's intelligence headquarters. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who had been monitoring alien communications for over a decade. We've been intercepting hegemony transmissions for months, Amy began. They never intended to honor any agreement with the Council. Internal communications show they plan to use this crisis as an excuse to launch a war of extermination against humanity. General Clark stood up, his face red with anger. Extermination? They want to kill every human in the galaxy? According to Warlord Krexthar's private messages to his commanders, yes, Amy confirmed. They believe humans are too dangerous to be allowed to survive. Our evolution on what they call a death world has created psychological traits they consider incompatible with galactic civilization. Admiral, Morrison's hologram flickered as his ship continued its journey back to human space. What kind of psychological traits? Dr. Alex Turner materialized as another hologram from his laboratory on Mars. The xenobiologist had spent his career studying the differences between human and alien psychology. It's quite fascinating. Actually, Dr. Turner began, every other known species in the galaxy evolved in relatively stable environments. Their homeworlds experienced gradual climate changes over millions of years, allowing life to develop through cooperation and mutual aid. Earth was different, he continued. Our planet went through repeated catastrophes, ice ages that lasted hundreds of thousands of years, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun, asteroid impacts that caused mass extinctions. The species that survived weren't the ones that cooperated. They were the ones that adapted, fought, and never gave up. Fleet Admiral Parker looked skeptical. Dr. Turner, how does this translate into practical military advantages? Humans are the only known species that evolved as persistence hunters, Dr. Turner explained. We would chase prey animals for days, sometimes weeks, until they collapsed from exhaustion. This required three things that no other species possesses: the ability to track targets over vast distances, the physical endurance to maintain pursuit indefinitely, and the psychological drive to never give up. General Clark was beginning to understand. You're saying we're naturally better at warfare than they are. I'm saying warfare as humans understand it doesn't exist anywhere else in the galaxy, Dr. Turner replied. When alien species fight, they engage in formal battles with predetermined rules. It's more like a sporting event than actual combat. The losing side surrenders, negotiations begin, and life continues, Kate nodded. But humans evolved in an environment where losing meant extinction. We developed the concept of total war long before we developed civilization. Admiral Morrison's image leaned forward. What about their superior technology and numbers? Amy Foster answered that question. Their ships are bigger and more powerful than ours, but they're designed for the type of warfare aliens understand. Long-range engagements between large formations with both sides maneuvering according to established tactical doctrine. Human ships are smaller and faster, Kate added. We built them that way because we assumed we'd always be outnumbered. Our military doctrine emphasizes mobility, surprise, and asymmetric tactics. Dr. Turner activated a display showing comparative brain scans. There's another factor to consider. Human brains developed in a high-stress environment where split-second decisions meant the difference between life and death. We process information faster under pressure, while most alien species become less effective when stressed. General Clark was studying troop deployment reports. What about ground combat? Even more one-sided, Dr. Turner replied. Alien ground forces operate like police units. They're used to dealing with civil unrest and minor conflicts, not actual warfare. Human soldiers train for scenarios that would terrify most alien species. Fleet Admiral Parker still looked concerned. Admiral Sullivan, even if everything Dr. Turner says is true, we're still vastly outnumbered. Superior tactics can only do so much against overwhelming force, Kate smiled grimly. Ben, you're thinking like an alien. You're assuming we'll fight a conventional war where both sides line up their fleets and see who has more ships. What's the alternative? Parker asked. We fight like humans, Kate replied. We use guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run attacks, and psychological warfare. We make them afraid to leave their home systems. We turn their superior numbers into a liability by forcing them to spread out to protect everything they care about. Admiral Morrison nodded approvingly. Hunt them like our ancestors hunted prey on the African savanna. Exactly, Kate confirmed. I'm promoting you to Fleet Admiral, Jake. You'll command the new Hunter fleet consisting of our fastest and most maneuverable ships. Your job is to make the hegemony afraid to operate in open space. General Clark was looking at colony defense reports. What about protecting our civilians? We evacuate non-essential personnel from the most vulnerable colonies, Kate replied. But we're not abandoning our territory. Anyone who wants to fight for their home will have that chance. Amy Foster's hologram flickered as she received new intelligence reports. Admiral, I'm getting confirmation that hegemony fleets are already moving toward our borders. They're not waiting for the Council's deadline. Kate stood up and looked around the room at the faces of humanity's military leadership. Some were present in person. Others appeared as holograms, but all showed the same expression of grim determination. Ladies and gentlemen, the galaxy has made a serious mistake, Kate announced. They've confused our preference for peace with an inability to wage war. They think we're weak because we've chosen diplomacy over aggression for 50 years. They're about to learn that humans didn't reach the top of Earth's food chain by being weak, she continued. We got there by being the most persistent, adaptable, and ruthless predators our planet ever produced. General Clark smiled for the first time since the crisis began. When do we start? The war starts the moment the first hegemony ship crosses into human space, Kate replied. But the hunt starts now. Every ship, every soldier, every civilian who chooses to fight will show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity's survival. The meeting dissolved as commanders returned to their ships and bases to prepare for war. Kate remained in the briefing room, staring out at Earth through the station's massive windows. Amy Foster's hologram remained active. Admiral, are you sure about this? We're betting everything on the theory that humans are better at warfare than species with millions of years more experience. Kate turned away from the window. Amy, those species have millions of years of experience at what they call warfare, but they've never faced anything like us. The galaxy is about to discover that there's a difference between playing at war and fighting for survival. Outside the station, Earth rotated slowly in the darkness, unaware that its children were about to remind the universe why humanity had been called the most dangerous species on their home world. The hegemony fleet approached New Colorado like a storm rolling across space. Admiral Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of his flagship as over 200 alien warships moved into attack formation. The massive vessels were impressive, each one 3 times larger than the biggest human ship. Their energy shields glowed with power, and their weapons could destroy a city with a single shot. Admiral, they're transmitting on standard diplomatic frequencies, reported Communications Officer Danny Walsh. His voice was steady, but Jake could hear the tension underneath. Let's hear what they have to say, Jake replied. The main screen filled with the image of Warlord Krexthar. The massive Vorthax stood over 8 feet tall. His reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile. Behind him, Jake could see other alien commanders from the various hegemony species. Human ships, you are in violation of Galactic Council Resolution 23874, Krexthar announced. You have 48 hours to evacuate this system or face the consequences. Jake activated the response channel. Warlord Krexthar, this is Admiral Morrison of the human fleet. New Colorado is a sovereign human colony. We're not going anywhere. The Vorthax eyes flashed with what looked like amusement. Admiral Morrison, you command 37 ships against my fleet of 215. Do you really think you can defend this system? I think you're about to find out, Jake replied calmly. Krexthar's expression changed to one of annoyance. Very well. You have chosen extinction over exile. Do not expect mercy when we defeat you. The transmission ended and Jake turned to his tactical officer. Commander Sarah Williams, deploy the attack squadrons according to Plan Coyote. Sarah Williams nodded and began transmitting orders to the human fleet. The 37 ships began to scatter, forming small groups that moved away from the planet at high speed. Sir, the aliens are confused, reported Sensor Officer Pete Jackson. Their formations are designed to engage an enemy fleet that stays together. They don't know how to respond to our dispersal pattern. Jake smiled. That's the point. They're expecting a traditional battle where both fleets line up and shoot at each other until one side wins. We're going to give them something different. On the alien flagship, Warlord Krexthar was indeed confused. His tactical advisors were trying to explain why the human ships were spreading out instead of forming a battle line. Perhaps they are retreating, suggested one of his subordinates. No, Krexthar replied. Their course vectors show they're moving to flank our formation. But that makes no sense. Their ships are too small to engage our dreadnoughts directly. The answer came minutes later when the first human attack squadron struck. Commander Williams led 12 fast ships in a high-speed assault on the alien fleet's left wing. Instead of engaging in long-range weapons fire, the human ships closed to point-blank range and concentrated their fire on a single alien cruiser. The alien ship's shields collapsed under the focused attack, and the hull began to buckle. But instead of moving away to safety, the human ships did something that shocked the hegemony forces. The lead human vessel, already damaged by return fire, deliberately rammed the alien cruiser at full speed. The explosion lit up space like a miniature star. Both ships were destroyed instantly, but the psychological impact on the alien fleet was enormous. "They are insane," breathed one of Krexthar's officers. "No civilized species deliberately destroys their own ships." "Continue the attack," Krexthar ordered. But Jake could hear uncertainty in his voice. The second human squadron, led by Captain Lisa Brooks, attacked from the opposite direction. Again, the human ships closed to suicidal range and concentrated their fire. When alien reinforcements moved to help, they found themselves facing something they had never encountered before. Human pilots were pulling maneuvers that should have killed them. The small ships spun and twisted through three-dimensional space, pulling G-forces that would have knocked any alien unconscious. But the human pilots not only survived these maneuvers, they seemed to thrive on them. "Tactical analysis," demanded Krexthar. "Sir, the human pilots are operating at physical stress levels that our medical experts say should be fatal," reported his science officer. "Their reaction times are also significantly faster than our projections indicated." Meanwhile, on the planet's surface, Colonel Matt Davis was preparing for the ground invasion that would inevitably follow the space battle. He had 30,000 human soldiers under his command, facing an expected landing force of over 100,000 alien troops. "Colonel, enemy dropships are launching," reported Major Kevin Roberts. "They're using standard orbital assault tactics. Large formations moving in predictable patterns." Matt nodded. "Perfect. They're fighting by the book. Their book, not ours." The human ground forces had spent weeks preparing for this moment. Instead of forming traditional defensive lines, they had dispersed throughout the colony's capital city. Every building had been turned into a potential ambush site. Every street had been prepared as a kill zone. When the alien forces landed, they expected to face organized resistance from prepared positions. Instead, they found a city that seemed deserted. Their advance units moved cautiously through empty streets following standard urban combat doctrine. The first attack came from nowhere. Human soldiers emerged from hidden positions, struck with overwhelming force, and disappeared before the aliens could respond. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. "These humans fight like demons," reported one alien commander to his superiors. "They appear from shadows, strike without warning, and show no fear of death." Back in space, Admiral Morrison was coordinating the most unconventional battle in galactic history. His ships refused to engage in the type of long-range combat the aliens expected. Instead, they used hit-and-run tactics, false retreats, and coordinated swarm attacks that overwhelmed alien ships one at a time. The turning point came when Captain Brooks, her ship heavily damaged, received permission to attempt Plan Desperate. "Admiral, my ship's main drive is failing," she reported. "Request permission to implement final option." Jake hesitated for only a moment. "Permission granted, Lisa. Make it count." Brooks turned her dying ship toward the alien flagship and engaged maximum thrust. The aliens realized what was happening and concentrated all their weapons on the approaching human vessel. But Brooks had anticipated this. Her ship weaved through the incoming fire like a living thing, using the debris from destroyed vessels as cover. When she was finally hit and her ship began to break apart, she used the ship's emergency systems to eject the crew in escape pods while keeping the ship on course. The unmanned vessel struck Krexthar's flagship like a projectile, penetrating the energy shields and smashing into the command section. The massive alien ship didn't explode, but its command structure was devastated. In the chaos that followed, Jake ordered a general assault. Every remaining human ship attacked simultaneously, concentrating on ships whose command systems had been disrupted by the ramming attack. The alien fleet, already demoralized by the humans' unconventional tactics, began to fall apart. Ships that had never faced an enemy willing to die for victory started to retreat. Others surrendered rather than face the terrifying human assault. On the ground, Colonel Davis received reports that alien forces were requesting evacuation. The psychological warfare had been completely successful. Alien soldiers who had been trained for conventional military operations couldn't cope with an enemy that seemed to emerge from nowhere and strike without warning. "Sir, We're receiving surrender signals from the remaining alien fleet, reported Danny Walsh. Jake looked at the tactical display. Of the original hegemony force of 215 ships, only 63 remained operational. The human fleet had been reduced to 11 ships, but they had won. Open a channel to all surviving alien vessels, Jake ordered. When the communication link was established, Jake addressed the defeated hegemony forces. This is Admiral Morrison to all alien ships. You came here expecting to find weak prey that would flee at the first sign of conflict. Instead, you found predators defending their territory. He paused, letting his words sink in. Return to your home systems and tell your leaders what you learned here today. Humans don't fight by your rules. We don't surrender when outnumbered. We don't retreat when facing impossible odds. And we will never ever give up our freedom without a fight. The alien ships began to withdraw, carrying with them the first reports of humanity's true nature. The galaxy was about to learn that the species they had dismissed as primitive and weak was actually the most dangerous predator they had ever encountered. Jake looked out at the stars and wondered how many more battles like this it would take. Before the galaxy understood the truth about humanity, they had chosen to start this war, but they had no idea what they were really fighting against. News of the Battle of New Colorado spread across the galaxy, faster than the speed of light. Quantum communication networks carried reports of humanity's impossible victory to every corner of known space. The Galactic Council's emergency session was called within hours of receiving the first transmissions. Council President Zethran stood before the assembled representatives of over 300 species. The ancient crystalline being had seen many wars in his long lifetime. But the reports from New Colorado disturbed him deeply. Fellow beings, Zethran announced, we have received troubling reports from the human colony system. It appears the hegemony's initial assault was repelled with significant losses. A murmur ran through the assembly. The Hegemony Alliance was considered one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. The idea that a minor species like humanity could defeat them seemed impossible. Representative Veltar of the Aquatic Collective raised a question. President Zethran, our analysts suggest the reports must be exaggerated. How could 37 human ships defeat over 200 hegemony vessels? That is what concerns us, Zethran replied. Initial diplomatic overtures to the human government have been rejected. Admiral Sullivan has refused all attempts at negotiation. On Luna Station, Admiral Kate Sullivan was indeed refusing all diplomatic contact. She stood in her command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing human fleet movements across the galaxy. Director Amy Foster materialized as a hologram from Earth Intelligence Headquarters. Admiral, the alien diplomatic corps is becoming increasingly desperate, Amy reported. They're offering everything from territory concessions to full Galactic Council membership with enhanced privileges. What about the hegemony? Kate asked. Warlord Krexthar is demanding reinforcements from all 12 Alliance species, Amy replied. But our intercepts suggest some of his allies are having second thoughts. The footage from New Colorado has shaken them badly. Kate nodded. Good. Fear is a powerful weapon. What's the status of Operation Nightfall? Dr. Rebecca Stone appeared as another hologram. The human psychologist had become Kate's expert on alien mentality during the crisis. Admiral, our psychological analysis of hegemony species indicates they have no concept of total warfare, Dr. Stone explained. They understand conquest and defense but not extermination. When they fight, it's always with the assumption that the losing side will surrender and negotiate. That's their weakness, Kate replied. They can't imagine an enemy that won't surrender. Admiral Morrison's image flickered onto the display from his position near the human frontier. Admiral Sullivan, I'm ready to implement Phase 2 of the operation. Kate smiled grimly. Approved, Jake. Show them what human hunters can do. Operation Nightfall was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of defending human colonies and waiting for the next hegemony attack, the human fleet went on the offensive. But they didn't target military installations or enemy fleets. They targeted something much more important to alien psychology, the feeling of safety. Captain Eric Jones commanded a squadron of 12 stealth ships designed for long-range reconnaissance. His new orders turned these vessels into something the galaxy had never imagined. Terror weapons. Captain, we're approaching the hegemony supply convoy, reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Nancy Clark. 24 cargo ships with an escort of 8 warships. Eric studied the tactical display. The convoy was carrying food and medical supplies to hegemony military bases near human space. Under traditional galactic warfare conventions, such convoys were considered legitimate military targets, but attacking them was rare. "Begin the attack," Eric ordered. The human ships appeared on the convoy's sensors like ghosts. The alien escort vessels barely had time to raise shields before the first human torpedoes struck. But the humans weren't trying to destroy the convoy. They were sending a message. The attack lasted only minutes. When it was over, half the cargo ships were destroyed and the rest were damaged but salvageable. The escort ships were disabled but not destroyed. Most importantly, the human attackers had vanished as quickly as they appeared. "This is Commander Yextal of the convoy escort," transmitted the surviving alien officer. "We are under attack by human vessels using unknown stealth technology." They struck without warning and disappeared, requesting immediate assistance. Similar attacks began happening throughout hegemony space. Human raiders struck supply lines, communication relays, and isolated outposts. They never stayed to fight a prolonged battle. Instead, they hit fast and hard, then vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The psychological impact on alien military forces was devastating. Hegemony soldiers who had never experienced uncertainty began to question every shadow and sensor reading. Supply convoys that had operated safely for centuries now required massive military escorts. Commander Julie Martinez pioneered the most effective psychological warfare technique. Her fast attack ships would strike military outposts on remote worlds, but instead of destroying them completely, they would leave clear evidence of human presence. "Lieutenant Frank Wilson, deploy the psychological warfare packages," Julie ordered as her ships withdrew from a successful raid. Frank activated systems that scattered human military equipment around the attacked base. Helmets, weapons, and other gear were left behind where alien forces would find them. But these weren't random items. Each piece of equipment told a story about human military capabilities that terrified alien analysts. The weapons showed signs of use in environments that should have been lethal to humans. The equipment was designed for operations in extreme temperatures, toxic atmospheres, and high radiation zones. To alien species that required controlled environments to survive, the implications were horrifying. Major Chris Thompson commanded human special forces units that took psychological warfare to a new level. His teams infiltrated alien worlds and sabotaged infrastructure while leaving behind evidence of their presence. "Major, the power grid disruption is complete," reported Sergeant Rachel Brown. "The aliens will find our calling cards within hours." Chris nodded. "Good. Make sure they understand that nowhere is safe from human infiltration." The calling cards were simple but effective. Human writing appeared on alien computer systems. Human music played from commandeered communication networks. Most disturbing of all, human soldiers left video messages in alien languages, explaining exactly how they had penetrated supposedly secure facilities. The cumulative effect was a complete breakdown in alien military morale. Species that had dominated the galaxy for millennia began to experience something they had never felt before: fear of the dark. Dr. Stone's Psychological Warfare Division amplified this fear by broadcasting carefully selected footage throughout alien space. The broadcast showed human soldiers and pilots in action, but they were edited to emphasize humanity's most disturbing characteristics. Alien viewers watched humans performing impossible physical feats. They saw human pilots surviving G-forces that should have been fatal. They witnessed human soldiers fighting in environments that would kill any alien within minutes. But the most effective propaganda was also the most honest. Dr. Stone's team simply broadcast documentary footage from Earth, showing humanity's natural predators in action. The psychological impact of showing them how humans evolved has been remarkable. Dr. Stone reported to Admiral Sullivan, "Alien scientists are confirming that Earth is indeed a death world by their standards. The idea that an entire species evolved in such an environment terrifies them." The broadcast showed lions hunting zebras, wolves pursuing elk across frozen landscapes, and most disturbing of all, early humans tracking prey across vast distances. To alien species that had evolved as herbivores or scavengers, the footage seemed like horror movies come to life. Meanwhile, Colonel Davis was demonstrating human ground combat techniques on worlds where hegemony forces had attempted landings. His soldiers moved through alien cities like shadows, appearing and disappearing at will. "Colonel, the alien garrison is requesting evacuation," reported Captain Brian Lewis. "They're claiming the city is haunted." Matt smiled. "Let them evacuate. Word of mouth is the most effective propaganda." The evacuating alien soldiers carried with them stories of humans who moved without sound, struck without warning, and seemed to know their every move before they made it. These stories spread throughout hegemony space, creating a legend of human invincibility that was more effective than any military victory. Within months of the war's beginning, the psychological campaign had achieved something that military force alone could never accomplish. Entire hegemony fleets began avoiding areas where human forces might be present. Supply lines that had operated safely for centuries were abandoned. Some hegemony worlds began requesting withdrawal of their species from the Alliance. Admiral Sullivan studied reports from across the galaxy as the psychological warfare campaign reached its peak effectiveness. "Amy, what's the latest intelligence on hegemony military morale?" Kate asked. "It's collapsing," Amy replied. "Some of their military units are refusing deployment orders. Others are requesting transfer to sectors far from human space. The psychological impact has exceeded our most optimistic projections." Kate nodded with satisfaction. The galaxy is learning that there are different types of warfare. They understand conquest, and 6 months after the war began, the galaxy was a different place. Fear had replaced confidence in hegemony space, while human forces continued their relentless psychological campaign. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying intelligence reports that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender signals from another hegemony fleet," reported Communications Officer Danny Walsh. "That makes 17 enemy formations that have surrendered without firing a shot this month." Jake nodded, but his expression remained serious. "What's their stated reason for surrender?" "Same as the others, sir. They report that their crews refuse to engage human forces. Morale has completely collapsed." Intelligence Officer Commander Tony Rodriguez materialized as a hologram from his position aboard a stealth reconnaissance ship. His teams had been monitoring alien communication networks throughout the war. "Admiral, you need to hear the latest intercepts," Tony reported. "The aliens aren't just afraid of us anymore. Some of them think we're actually demons." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Demons?" "Their word translates closer to ancient predators returned from the void," Tony explained. "Several alien religious groups have declared that humanity represents some kind of cosmic punishment for the galaxy's sins." Dr. Rebecca Stone's hologram appeared alongside Tony's. "The psychological impact has exceeded every projection we made," she reported. "We're seeing mass panic on some hegemony worlds. Their leaders are having trouble maintaining civil order." Jake was studying tactical displays when an urgent communication arrived from Admiral Sullivan on Luna Station. "Jake, we have a situation developing at Kepler Station," Kate announced. "Hegemony intelligence suggests they're planning a massive coordinated assault. Every available ship from 3 allied species is converging on our position." Jake looked at the star charts. Kepler Station was a critical human outpost that controlled access to 6 major colony systems. If it fell, the hegemony could cut human space in half. "How many ships are we facing?" Jake asked. "Initial estimates suggest over 1,000 vessels," Kate replied. "It's the largest fleet action attempted since the war began." Jake was quiet for a moment, then he smiled. "Admiral, I think it's time we showed the galaxy what happens when they corner a predator." Captain Lisa Brooks, now commanding the human flagship UES Retribution, joined the conversation from her position in the Kepler system. "Admiral Morrison, I have a suggestion that might sound crazy," Lisa said. "What if we let them surround us?" Jake's smile widened. "I'm listening." "Every hegemony military doctrine we've captured emphasizes surrounding and containing enemy forces," Lisa continued. "They think having us outnumbered and surrounded guarantees their victory, but they're thinking like prey animals that rely on the herd for protection." Dr. Stone's psychological analysis supported Lisa's reasoning. "Human predator instincts actually improve when cornered," she explained. "Most alien species become less effective under pressure, but humans become more dangerous." Jake made his decision. "Admiral Sullivan, I'm taking the Hunter fleet to Kepler Station. We're going to give the hegemony exactly what they want, a chance to surround and destroy the entire human fleet." "Jake, that's extremely risky," Kate warned. "That's what makes it perfect," Jake replied. "They expect us to avoid this fight. Instead, we're going to turn their trap into our hunting ground. The human fleet that assembled at Kepler Station was the largest concentration of human military power in history. Nearly 400 ships representing almost two-thirds of humanity's entire space force gathered to face the approaching hegemony armada. Warlord Krexthar commanded the alien forces personally, determined to redeem his reputation after the disaster at New Colorado. His fleet included ships from the Vorthek Empire, the Crystalline Hegemony, and the Metal Collective. It was a force capable of conquering entire star systems. Admiral Morrison, enemy forces are entering the system, reported Sensor Officer Pete Jackson. Confirmed count of 1,043 vessels. Jake activated the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. Today we face the largest enemy force in galactic history. They believe their numbers guarantee victory. He paused, looking out at the approaching alien fleet. They're wrong. Numbers don't matter when you're hunting prey that's too confident for its own good. Today we show the galaxy what human pack hunters can do when they work together. The Battle of Kepler Station began exactly as the hegemony planned. Their massive fleet formed a perfect encirclement around the human forces, cutting off all escape routes. From the alien perspective, the humans were trapped with no possibility of retreat. Warlord Krexthar opened communications with the human fleet. Admiral Morrison, you are completely surrounded. Surrender now and your crews will be treated according to galactic conventions. Jake's response was broadcast not just to the hegemony fleet, but throughout the galaxy via quantum communication networks. Warlord Krexthar, you've made a fundamental error in judgment. You think you have us surrounded. But from our perspective, you've simply arranged all our targets in a convenient circle. What happened next became known throughout the galaxy as the Predator's Gambit. Instead of trying to break out of the encirclement, the human fleet did something that violated every principle of space combat. They turned every ship into a weapon. Captain Brooks led the first wave of the attack. All ships implement Protocol Apex, use everything we have. The human ship suddenly accelerated toward the alien formation at maximum speed. But instead of engaging in long-range combat, they closed to point-blank range and began using ramming attacks on a scale never seen before. Damaged human vessels didn't withdraw for repairs. Instead, they deliberately crashed into alien ships using their destruction as weapons. The psychological impact on alien crews was devastating. They're using their own ships as projectiles, reported one alien commander to Krexthar. This is impossible. No rational species fights this way. But the ramming attacks were only the beginning. Human fighters and bombers, launched from carriers that were themselves sacrificing themselves, swarmed through the alien formation like angry insects. Commander Sarah Williams led a squadron of fighters in an attack that defied every principle of survival. All pilots, remember your training. We're pack hunters. Coordinate your attacks and watch each other's backs. The human pilots worked together with a precision that amazed even their own commanders. They moved through three-dimensional space like a school of fish, each pilot anticipating the actions of every other pilot in the formation. But it was their willingness to sacrifice themselves that truly terrified the aliens. Human pilots whose ships were damaged didn't retreat. Instead, they used their dying vessels as guided missiles, striking alien ships with devastating effect. Sir, we're receiving panic reports from all sectors of the formation, Krexthar's tactical officer reported. Our forces are requesting permission to withdraw. Withdrawal is not permitted, Krexthar replied. We outnumber them 3-1. Continue the attack. But the mathematics of the battle were working against the hegemony. Their larger ships were designed for long-range combat, not the close-quarters chaos the humans had created. Worse, their crews had never faced an enemy that seemed to welcome death as another weapon in their arsenal. The turning point came when Admiral Morrison made a decision that shocked even his own officers. All remaining ships concentrate on the enemy flagship. Full ramming speed. Sir, that will destroy the entire fleet, warned Captain Brooks. Not the entire fleet, Jake replied calmly. Just the part that matters. Every surviving human ship turned toward Krexthar's massive command vessel and accelerated to maximum speed. The aliens concentrated all their firepower on the approaching human ships, destroying dozens of them. But the survivors kept coming. The first human ship to reach the alien flagship was already breaking apart from enemy fire, but its pilot managed to crash into the vessel's main weapon array. The second ship struck the shield generators, The third penetrated the hull and exploded inside the ship's main engineering section. Krexthar watched in horror as ship after ship smashed into his vessel. "They're all insane," he breathed. Every single human is completely insane. The massive Hegemony flagship, designed to withstand the combined firepower of enemy fleets, couldn't survive the physical impact of dozens of ships deliberately crashing into it. The vessel began to break apart, and with it, the command structure of the entire Hegemony formation. In the chaos that followed, something unprecedented happened. The Hegemony fleet, faced with an enemy that treated death as just another tactic, began to flee. Ships that had never retreated from battle abandoned their formations and jumped to hyperspace. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender signals from the remaining enemy vessels," reported Danny Walsh. "They're requesting immediate evacuation from the system." Jake looked at the tactical display. Of the original Hegemony force of over 1,000 ships, fewer than 300 remained operational. The human fleet had been reduced to 47 vessels, but they had won the most decisive victory in the war. "Open a channel to all surviving enemy ships, Jake, or—" The news of humanity's victory at Kepler Station spread through the galaxy like wildfire. On worlds that had never heard of humans before the war, alien citizens watched footage of the battle with expressions of disbelief and terror. The impossible had happened. A minor species had defeated the most powerful military alliance in galactic history. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in her command center on Luna Station, watching real-time intelligence reports flow in from across alien space. Director Amy Foster's teams had been monitoring Hegemony communications, and the results were beyond anything they had hoped for. "Admiral, we're seeing massive troop withdrawals from forward positions," Amy reported via hologram. "Entire Hegemony fleets are pulling back to defend their home systems. What about civilian morale on Hegemony worlds?" Kate asked. Dr. Rebecca Stone materialized as another hologram. "Complete collapse. We're detecting panic buying of food supplies, mass migrations away from border regions, and some worlds are considering withdrawing from the alliance entirely." Kate nodded with satisfaction. "The psychological warfare campaign has been more effective than we dared hope. But we can't let them recover. It's time for the final phase." Admiral Jake Morrison's image appeared on the main display. His fleet was still recovering from the massive battle at Kepler Station, but his expression showed grim determination. "Admiral Sullivan, we've received intelligence about Warlord Krexthar's location," Jake reported. "He's retreating to Vorthak Prime with the remnants of his forces. If we can strike there, we can end this war." Kate considered the implications. Vorthak Prime was the capital world of the Vorthak Empire and the heart of the Hegemony Alliance. It was also the most heavily defended planet in alien space, protected by orbital fortresses and the largest fleet concentration in the galaxy. "Jake, the intelligence estimates suggest over 2,000 ships defending that system," Kate warned. "Even after our victories, we can't match those numbers." "We don't need to match them," Jake replied. "We just need to hunt them." Dr. Alex Turner joined the conversation from his research facility on Mars. The xenobiologist had been studying human and alien psychology throughout the war, and his insights had proven invaluable. "Admiral Morrison is correct," Dr. Turner said. "Our analysis of Hegemony psychology shows they're now operating from a position of fear rather than confidence. Fear makes prey animals predictable." Kate made her decision. "Jake, you're authorized to implement the Apex Protocol. Take every available ship and end this war." The human fleet that assembled for the assault on Vorthak Prime was smaller than the force that had fought at Kepler Station, but it was composed entirely of veterans who had survived the most brutal battles in galactic history. Every ship, every crew member, every weapon system had been tested in combat against impossible odds. Fleet Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the UES Apex, as the human force approached the Vorthak system. The ship was humanity's newest and most advanced vessel, built specifically for the type of warfare they had perfected during the conflict. "Admiral, we're detecting massive defensive formations around Vorthak Prime," reported Sensor Officer Pete Jackson. "Confirmed count of 2,300 enemy vessels." Commander Sarah Williams, now serving as Morrison's tactical officer, studied the alien formations. "Sir, they're using classical defensive tactics. Layered shields, overlapping fire zones, concentrated firepower." Jake smiled grimly. "Perfect. They're still fighting the last war, Captain Lisa Brooks, commanding the assault carrier UES Retribution, opened a communication channel.
Admiral, all fighter squadrons are ready for launch.
We have 600 pilots volunteering for suicide missions. Negative on the suicide missions, Jake replied. We're going to try something different this time. We're going to hunt them like a pack. The concept Jake was implementing came from humanity's deepest evolutionary memories. Early human hunters didn't simply chase their prey until it collapsed. They worked together, using coordination and communication to drive prey animals into positions where they could be taken down efficiently. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison, Jake announced to the fleet. Today we face the largest enemy force in galactic history. But we're not going to fight them. We're going to hunt them. The human attack began with something the aliens had never seen before: perfect coordination across hundreds of separate vessels. The human ships moved like a single organism, each component anticipating the actions of every other component. Instead of charging directly at the alien defensive lines, the human fleet split into dozens of smaller groups. Each group attacked a different section of the defensive formation, but their actions were coordinated to achieve a single goal: driving the alien ships into a tighter and tighter formation. Warlord Krexthar watched from his command ship as the human attack developed. "What are they doing?" he demanded of his tactical officers. "This isn't a standard assault pattern. Sir, they appear to be hurting our formations," one of his subordinates reported. "They're not trying to break through our defenses. They're trying to compress them." The truth of the human strategy became clear as the battle progressed. Every time an alien ship tried to maneuver to a better position, human forces would appear to block the move. The massive hegemony fleet found itself being driven into an increasingly smaller space. "They're turning our numbers against us," Krexthar realized with growing horror. "The more ships we have, the more compressed our formation becomes." Commander Angela Baker led one of the human fighter squadrons in the most complex aerial maneuver ever attempted. Her pilots worked together to create what military historians would later call a three-dimensional noose around the alien fleet. "All squadrons, maintain formation integrity," Angela commanded. "Drive them toward the planet. Don't let any ships escape." The human fighters moved through space like a flock of birds, each pilot instinctively responding to the movements of their companions. They had trained for this type of coordination their entire careers, but the aliens had never seen anything like it. As the alien fleet was compressed into a smaller and smaller area, their own weapons became a liability. Ships that tried to fire at human attackers risked hitting their own allies. The defensive formation that should have been their strength became a trap. "Admiral, we're receiving panic signals from all sectors," reported Krexthar's communication officer. "Our formations are becoming too dense to maneuver effectively." Jake watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Now comes the final phase. All ships implement Protocol Endgame. What happened next would be remembered as the moment the galaxy learned what it truly meant to be hunted by humans. The compressed alien fleet, trapped in a formation too dense for effective maneuvering, found itself facing something that violated every principle of civilized warfare. The human ships began to use the alien fleet's own density against them. Damaged human vessels were deliberately guided into collision courses with multiple alien ships. The explosions from these impacts created chain reactions that spread through the tightly packed enemy formation. Captain Brooks led her assault carrier in an attack that seemed suicidal, but was actually the product of careful calculation. "All hands prepare for ramming speed. We're going to punch a hole through their center." The UES Retribution accelerated toward the heart of the alien formation, taking massive damage from enemy fire but continuing its approach. When the ship finally struck the alien command cluster, the explosion was visible from the planet's surface. But Brooks had ejected in an escape pod seconds before impact, and her sacrifice had achieved its purpose. The destruction of the command cluster left thousands of alien ships without coordination or leadership. General Ryan Clark commanded the ground assault that followed the space battle. His forces had been waiting in stealth transports ready to land on Vorthak Prime once the orbital defenses were neutralized. "All units begin planetary assault," Ryan commanded. "Remember, we're not here to conquer. We're here to hunt." The human ground forces that landed on Vorthak Prime were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They moved through the alien capital city like ghosts, appearing and disappearing at will. Every building became a potential ambush site. Every street became a hunting ground. The psychological impact on the Vorthak defenders was immediate and devastating. These were the same aliens who had confidently declared war on humanity months ago. Now they cowered in fortified positions, afraid to venture into their own city. "Sir, we're receiving surrender signals from the planetary government," reported Major Chris Thompson. "They're requesting immediate negotiations." But it was Warlord Krexthar's surrender that truly ended the war. The massive Vorthak commander, whose species had dominated their region of space for millennia, broadcast his capitulation on all frequencies. "This is Warlord Krexthar to all hegemony forces," the alien leader announced. "I hereby order the unconditional surrender of all military units. Humans are not prey. They are predators, and predators always win." Jake stood on the bridge of his surviving flagship, looking out at the debris field that had once been the most powerful fleet in galactic history. Around him, his exhausted crew monitored the surrender of the remaining alien forces. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender signals from across hegemony space," reported Danny Walsh. 12 species are wrecked 3 weeks after the fall of Vorthak Prime. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered on Luna Station for what would become known as the Terran Accords. The massive conference hall had been hastily constructed to accommodate delegates from over 300 species. But the atmosphere was unlike any diplomatic gathering in galactic history. Admiral Kate Sullivan entered the hall flanked by her senior commanders. The aliens who had once dismissed humanity as a minor species now watched her with expressions ranging from fear to awe. Council President Zethron, the ancient crystalline being who had voted to sacrifice humanity to the hegemony, approached with obvious nervousness. "Admiral Sullivan, the Galactic Council is prepared to offer humanity full restoration of membership, plus enhanced privileges and territorial concessions," Zethron announced formally. Kate's response shocked everyone in the hall. "President Zethron, humanity rejects your offer." A murmur of confusion ran through the assembled delegates. Zethron's crystalline features shifted in what might have been surprise. "I don't understand, Admiral. What more could humanity want?" "We want the truth," Kate replied calmly. "Director Foster, please share your intelligence findings with the Assembly." Amy Foster's hologram appeared above the main conference table, displaying intercepted communications from the weeks leading up to the war. The translations showed the real story behind the Galactic Council's decision to abandon humanity. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings," Amy began. "These intercepted communications reveal that the Galactic Council didn't simply cave to hegemony pressure. You actively encouraged them to eliminate humanity." The display showed message after message between council members and hegemony leaders. The content was damning. Suggestions about how to make humanity's elimination look justified, discussions about redistributing human territory, and most shocking of all, conversations about preventing other primitive species from seeking council membership. "You didn't just sacrifice us to avoid a war," Kate continued. "You conspired to eliminate us because you believed we didn't deserve to exist among civilized species." Dr. Alex Turner materialized as another hologram from his research facility. "My analysis shows that the Council's decision was based on fundamental misunderstandings about human evolution and psychology." The xenobiologist activated a display showing comparative evolutionary charts. "Every species represented in this room evolved in relatively stable environments. Your ancestors developed cooperation and negotiation as survival traits because your worlds didn't require constant struggle against extinction. Earth was different," Dr. Turner continued. "Humans evolved during repeated catastrophic events: ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, mass extinctions. The only species that survived were those that could adapt, fight, and never give up." Representative Veltar of the Aquatic Collective raised a tentacle in question. "Dr. Turner, are you suggesting that humans are inherently more violent than other species?" "Not more violent," Dr. Turner replied. "More capable of violence when necessary. There's a crucial difference. Most alien species can only function within their preferred environmental and social parameters. Humans can adapt to anything." Admiral Morrison joined the conference via hologram from his position overseeing hegemony surrender procedures. "The question isn't whether humans are more violent. The question is whether the galaxy can accept a species that evolved to survive what you consider impossible conditions." Director Foster activated another series of displays showing human military doctrine compared to alien warfare conventions. Your species fight according to rules and limitations developed over millions of years of civilized interaction. Human military doctrine assumes no rules except survival. The assembled aliens studied the comparisons with growing unease. Alien warfare involved formal declarations, negotiated objectives, and established protocols for surrender and treatment of defeated enemies. Human warfare, as demonstrated during the recent conflict, involved whatever methods were necessary to ensure survival. This is precisely why we were concerned about human membership, admitted Representative Kexmore of the Silicon Collective. Your species represents variables that our civilization cannot predict or control. Kate smiled coldly. And that's exactly why you're not qualified to make decisions about humanity's future. She activated a new display showing the current political situation across the galaxy. The Hegemony Alliance has completely collapsed. 7 of the 12 member species have requested human protection from their former allies. 37 neutral worlds have applied for membership in what they're calling the human sphere of influence. The statistics were staggering. In less than a year, humanity had gone from being a minor council member to controlling the largest political and military bloc in galactic history. But the most important development, Kate continued, is the psychological impact of this war on galactic civilization itself. Dr. Rebecca Stone appeared as a hologram to present her analysis of galaxy-wide psychological changes. The war has shattered fundamental assumptions about the nature of intelligent life. For the first time in millions of years, alien species are experiencing existential fear. Children on alien worlds are having nightmares about humans, Dr. Stone continued. Adult aliens are requesting reassignment from any post that might bring them into contact with human forces. Some religious groups are declaring that humanity represents a cosmic judgment on galactic civilization. President Zethran's crystalline form flickered with what might have been distress. Dr. Stone, surely you don't suggest that fear should be the basis for galactic governance? I'm suggesting that respect is, Kate interjected. For 50 years, humanity tried to earn respect through cooperation and peaceful behavior. The result was that you dismissed us as weak and expendable. She gestured to the holographic displays showing human military victories. Now you respect us because you're afraid of us. That's not the foundation we wanted for our relationship with the galaxy, but it's the foundation you forced us to build. Commander Julie Martinez joined the conference to present the new reality of galactic politics. Admiral Sullivan, we're receiving reports that the crystalline hegemony is considering complete military disarmament. They're claiming they no longer see the point of maintaining armed forces. That's the natural response of prey animals when they realize they're sharing their environment with apex predators, Dr. Turner explained. Most alien species are now questioning whether military conflict of any kind is viable when humans are involved. The psychological transformation of galactic civilization was unprecedented. Species that had maintained military forces for millions of years were suddenly questioning whether warfare itself had become obsolete. If humans could defeat any conventional military force, what was the point of conventional military forces? Admiral Sullivan, what exactly does humanity want? Asked Representative Yitlan of the Energy Collective. Kate's answer would reshape galactic civilization for the next 1,000 years. We want acknowledgement of what this war has proven, Kate began. Humans are not a minor species that can be dismissed or eliminated when convenient. We are the apex predators of this galaxy. She activated a final display showing the proposed new galactic order. The human colonial authority will assume responsibility for maintaining galactic peace. All military forces will be integrated under human command. Disputes between species will be resolved according to human judgment. The reaction was immediate and predictable. Representatives throughout the hall began speaking at once, their translation devices creating a cacophony of different languages all expressing the same sentiment. Shock. You're demanding control of the entire galaxy, accused Representative Zexkor of the Methane Alliance. We're accepting responsibility for the galaxy, Kate corrected. The existing system failed catastrophically. The Council voted to sacrifice an entire species to avoid making difficult decisions. That system cannot be allowed to continue. Admiral Morrison's hologram nodded in agreement. The war proved that when survival is at stake, only one thing matters: who is better equipped to survive? The answer is humanity. Commander Sarah Williams, now serving as Morrison's chief of staff, presented the military aspects of the new order. Human forces will maintain peace through strength. Species that cooperate will be protected. Species that threaten galactic stability will be dealt with accordingly. The delegates spent the next several hours debating the implications of humanity's demands. But the underlying reality was inescapable. Human military forces controlled the galaxy's most strategic systems. Human psychological warfare had shattered alien confidence in their own military capabilities. Human technology, adapted for survival warfare, had proven superior to alien systems designed for conventional conflicts. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings, Kate announced as the debate wound down, let me be perfectly clear about our position. We're not asking for your approval of the new order. We're informing you of it. She gestured to the holographic displays showing human military positions throughout the galaxy. Human forces are already in position to enforce galactic peace. Alien military units are already reporting. 5 years had passed since the signing of the Terran Accords, and the galaxy operated under what historians called the human peace. Lord Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the UES Apex, humanity's newest and most advanced starship, watching as human and alien crews worked together in perfect coordination. The transformation had been remarkable. What had once been separate species with conflicting interests had become a unified galactic civilization under human leadership. The key to this success was not the threat of force, though that remained ever present, but the simple understanding that humans were the apex predators of the galaxy. Admiral, we're receiving reports from all sectors, announced Commander Sarah Williams, now serving as Morrison's Chief of Operations. Incident reports for the month show 0 interspecies conflicts requiring military intervention. Jake nodded with satisfaction. How does that compare to the historical average? Before the war, the Galactic Council averaged 47 interspecies conflicts per month, Sarah replied. Most required diplomatic intervention, and about 12% escalated to limited military action. Dr. Rebecca Stone materialized as a hologram from her new position as Director of Galactic Psychology. Her department had become the most important scientific institution in the galaxy, studying how different species adapted to human dominance. The psychological transformation continues to exceed our projections, Dr. Stone reported. Alien species are not just accepting human authority, they're actively seeking it. We're receiving requests for human arbitration in disputes that would have never reached the old Galactic Council. Jake was studying reports from across human space when Admiral Kate Sullivan's hologram appeared. She had been promoted to Supreme Commander of Galactic Forces, overseeing military operations across the entire galaxy. Jake, I have an interesting report from the former hegemony sectors, Kate announced. 3 species that were part of the original alliance are requesting formal integration into the human colonial authority. Which species? Jake asked. The Crystalline Collective, the Metalworkers Alliance, and surprisingly, a faction of the Vorthak Empire, Kate replied. They're claiming that human leadership provides stability they could never achieve on their own. The irony was not lost on either commander. The same aliens who had declared war on humanity to prove their superiority were now voluntarily submitting to human authority because they recognized its effectiveness. Commander Tony Rodriguez joined the conversation from his position as Director of Galactic Intelligence. His surveillance networks now spanned the entire galaxy, monitoring potential threats and maintaining the peace that human dominance had created. Admiral Morrison, you need to see the latest cultural analysis reports, Tony said. The psychological impact of human dominance is creating fundamental changes in alien society. Jake activated the display to review Tony's findings. The data was fascinating and slightly disturbing. Alien children were growing up in a galaxy where human authority was not just accepted, but celebrated. Alien art, literature, and entertainment were increasingly focused on themes related to human strength and leadership. Some alien cultures are developing what we can only call human worship, Tony continued. They're creating mythologies around human warriors and leaders. Children on alien worlds play games where they pretend to be human soldiers. Dr. Alex Turner appeared as another hologram from his expanded research facility. His studies of human and alien psychology had become the foundation for understanding the new galactic order. The cultural changes are a natural response to the psychological reality we've created, Dr. Turner explained. For millions of years, alien species developed cultures based on cooperation and consensus. Now they're adapting to a reality where ultimate authority rests with apex predators. Jake found the implications both encouraging and concerning. Dr. Turner, is this healthy for galactic civilization long-term? It's evolutionary, Dr. Turner replied. These species are adapting to survive in a galaxy dominated by humans. The cultures that adapt successfully will prosper. Those that don't will be replaced by cultures that do. Captain Lisa Brooks joined the conversation from her position commanding the Core Fleet, the primary military force responsible for maintaining order in the inner galaxy. Her ships patrolled the most critical systems, ensuring that the human peace remained unbroken. Admiral, we're seeing remarkable changes in alien military doctrine, Lisa reported. Species that maintained separate military forces are voluntarily integrating their forces under human command. They're not being forced to do this, they're requesting it. Why? Jake asked. Because human military doctrine works, Lisa explained. Alien officers who serve under human commanders are more successful than those who operate independently. The psychological advantages of human leadership translate into practical military advantages. The success of integrated human-alien military units had been one of the most surprising developments of the new era. Alien soldiers who learned to think like predators rather than prey became significantly more effective. More importantly, they began to understand why human military leadership was superior. Major Chris Thompson, now a general commanding integrated forces throughout the galaxy, provided regular reports on this phenomenon. Admiral Morrison, alien. Troops under human command are outperforming pure alien units by factors of 10 to 1 in training exercises. What accounts for the difference? Jake asked. Human commanders teach alien soldiers to think strategically rather than tactically, Chris explained. Most alien military training focuses on following procedures and maintaining formations. Human training teaches soldiers to adapt, improvise, and take initiative. Commander Julie Martinez had become the administrator of the Human Colonial Authority, the civilian government that managed day-to-day operations across human-controlled space. Her report showed that the economic and social benefits of human leadership were becoming apparent to alien populations. Admiral, we're seeing unprecedented economic growth in systems under direct human administration, Julie reported. Productivity is up 40% across all sectors, and citizen satisfaction surveys show approval ratings that the old Galactic Council never achieved. What's driving the improvement? Jake asked. Efficiency, Julie replied simply. Human administrators make decisions quickly and stick to them. Alien governments spent decades debating issues that human leaders resolve in hours. The psychological confidence that comes from strong leadership translates into economic confidence. Dr. Stone's research supported Julie's observations. Human leadership provides something that alien psychology requires, but could never create on its own: certainty. When alien citizens know that decisions will be made quickly and enforced consistently, they invest in long-term planning. The transformation was visible throughout the galaxy. Trade routes that had been disrupted by political uncertainty for centuries were now operating at maximum efficiency. Interspecies commerce, once hampered by complex negotiations and cultural misunderstandings, flowed smoothly under human oversight. But perhaps the most significant change was in the nature of conflict itself. Admiral Morrison studied reports showing that violent conflicts between alien species had virtually disappeared. Sarah, what's the current threat assessment for major interspecies warfare? Jake asked. Effectively zero, Sarah replied. No alien species is willing to risk military action that might attract human intervention. The psychological deterrent effect is complete. This was the ultimate achievement of human dominance, the elimination of large-scale warfare through the simple understanding that humans were the galaxy's ultimate arbiters of conflict. When disputes arose, alien species increasingly turned to human mediators rather than risking military solutions. Captain Angela Baker, now commanding the exploration fleet responsible for expanding human influence into uncharted regions of the galaxy, reported similar success in first contact situations. Admiral, We've made contact with 17 new species this year, Angela reported. In every case, once they understand the galactic political structure, they've requested immediate integration into human-controlled space. What's their reasoning? Jake asked. Security, Angela replied. These species understand that in a galaxy dominated by apex predators, the safest position is under the protection of those predators. The psychological logic was unassailable. New species entering galactic civilization recognized that their choice was simple: accept human leadership and prosper, or maintain independence and remain vulnerable to any threats that human forces might not choose to address. Admiral Sullivan's hologram returned with updates from the galactic periphery. Jake, we're receiving reports from deep space monitoring stations. Some alien species are actually requesting human colonization of their home systems. Requesting colonization? Jake was surprised. They want human communities established on their worlds as a guarantee of protection and prosperity, Kate explained. They've observed that worlds with human populations experience the highest levels of stability and economic growth. The request represented the ultimate psychological submission. These alien species were voluntarily accepting human settlers not as conquerors, but as partners who would bring the benefits of human leadership to their societies. Dr. Turner provided the psychological analogy